This is now the third season of Cardiology Masterclass series, and it's a series of presentations about various cardiology topics which I believe might be relevant to you on the ward or in your general practice. And we're going to start today with ECG, part one of ECG, and ECG is usually covered on 2 or 3 sessions, and I hope you'll be able to attend for all of them. Please feel free to ask any questions at any time. The real value of this talk is in the interactive nature. There's also breakfast, so please feel free to pick up a coffee or a croissant or something. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions or any things that you'd like to discuss. If you come across any ECGs that you're not sure about, please feel free to send me a message, or I'll put my email out in the end as well. So here are the assumptions and aims for this talk, right? For the ECG talk. We're going to start from the very basics. This is aimed at non-cardiologists. So bear with me even if you think that it's really basic. It's going to get more complex as we progress. It's going to get slightly more interesting as we progress. You will not be experts by the end of these talks, but hopefully I'm hoping you'll be able to be more confident in interpreting the ECGs whenever you come across an ECG, or at least know when there's a big bomb on the ECG that you need to get help. Right? This is on the assumption that we are all sensible and we're going to seek advice. We're never going to be overconfident and saying, yeah, I know what's happening here. And that practice makes perfect. Okay? So we're going to be talking today about pigeons. We're going to start about basics of the ECG. We're going to be talking about the complex, the sinus rhythm. We're going to be talking about the rate, ectopics, bundle branches, quiz, and then I'm going to just discuss very briefly about the Smart Heart project, which I'm leading on. So let's talk about pigeons. So this is an interesting study that they did in California about 4 years ago. And basically what they did is that they took a flock of pigeons and they trained them to identify cancer cells on histology slides. So every time the pigeon picks up a cancer cell, it would get a reward. And then they started seeing what's happening with the learning. By pigeon just learning patterns and being exposed to the correct pattern and having this reward feedback mechanism for learning. And what they found is that within a week, the pigeon's accuracy of detecting cancer cells has significantly improved, almost to 80–90%. All right, just one pigeon. So you take any pigeon of the flock, they all kind of did remarkably well after a week. And if you take a flock of pigeons together and just put them all in one room and then just get them to diagnose cancer slides, their sensitivity and specificity for picking up cancer cells significantly improved. Almost 99% sensitivity and specificity for picking up cancer cells. All right? Almost as good as a histopathologist. Almost. All right? So, but don't tell them this. So, what's interesting about this is that it's all about pattern recognition. Right? And these pigeons, without any medical training, without any clinical background, they were able to detect it just basically by looking at the pattern. So what I'm saying here is that ECG is all about pattern recognition. All right. And if pigeons can do it, I'm sure we can do it as well. All right. So let's start from the beginning. And just for those who came late, there's coffee and there's breakfast as well, so please feel free at any time to pick coffee. So in the beginning, there was a heart. All right. And the heart is the first organ to develop in the human embryo at 3 weeks. And without the heart, there's no way that the blood can circulate to all the growing structures and organs in the body. And the question is then, how does the heart contract? How does the heart able to perpetuate itself without any batteries? Yeah. So without any batteries, how is the heart going to just keep on going? If you take the heart out of the human body, it's still going to keep going for about 3–4 minutes, even without the brain, without nerve, without anything. The heart is going to keep on going. So how does it do this? How does it self-perpetuate? And the answer is basically you've got these pacemaker cells, which are found in the sinus node. Right? And these sinus cells, these pacemaker cells, are non-contractile. They don't contain any muscular fibers. They don't contribute to the contraction of the heart at all. All right? And they've got this special property. So if you compare a sinus or pacemaker cell compared to a myocardial fiber, you see here that the myocardium is just sitting idly here in phase 4. It won't do anything unless you tell it to. Right? It has to receive a stimulus in order to be able to do that spike and trigger the QRS and trigger the ECG. Okay? Whereas in the sinus node, it's just going merrily along. It's just happily singing its own melody. and it's through various currents and channels, it's controlling its own beat. All right, it's going to keep on going, whether there's, whether someone tells it to or not, it will keep on going. Okay, so this is how the pacemaker keeps the heart perpetuating. That's just like this heat toy, right? Heat engine toy. So it's going to keep on going even if you take it out of the human body. The sinus knows the pacemaker is going to perpetuate itself and keep on going. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Catch up later, thanks. Okay, so this is basically how the heart works. It's controlled by sinus node. And the contraction of the heart is a super controlled mechanism. All right, it's very well timed, it's very well coordinated mechanism. What you need is that you need the atria to contract before the ventricles. You need the ventricles to contract when the atria are relaxed. You don't want them both contracting at the same time, the atria and the ventricles. So you want the atria to contract to open the mitral and tricuspid valve. You want the ventricles to contract when the atria are relaxed, otherwise they will contract against an open mitral and tricuspid valve, right? And you can see it's a very, very well-timed, coordinated mechanism. It's a dance, basically, between the atria and the ventricle. It's a very well-timed dance. And what you need for this dance is that you need to have control of the signal moving from the sinus node in the top to the bottom. Okay? But there's so many ways where the signal can go across from the top to the bottom. So what's nature's solution for this? It's built a wall, basically. Yeah? So what nature has done is that it's built a fibrous structure across the whole border between the atria and the ventricle, so that signals are not going to bypass a very well designed specific route. Okay? And this route, basically, let's go through this route. So the signal is going to start here in the sinus node, and then goes to the AV node, and then go through the His bundle, through the bundles, the left and right bundle branches, okay, through the His Purkinje fibers, and this is basically how you're going to control and keep on top of the signal going through a very specific, well-designed, well-rehearsed route. Okay? Yeah? Is that clear? Right, now let's talk about the complex. So, we know that when we look at an ECG, there's electrical signals that are being generated there. And as we mentioned, we're going to start at the sinus node, and the sinus node is going to activate the atria first. Yeah? Is that correct? So what's activation of the atria going to result in? On ECG. If you look at an ECG, how is the atria activation going to appear? Very good. So you're going to get a P wave. Yeah? And then you're going to get activation of the ventricles. What are the activations of the ventricles called? QRS, very good. And then you're going to get the recovery waves across the whole ventricle, which results in excellent, very good. All right, so this is the PQRST. Okay, this is the complex. Now let's just focus on the QRS. All right, we're just going to now go in detail in the QRS complex. And when you look at the QRS complex, we've got specific rules in order to be able to name it so that we know what we're talking about. So we know when you look at an ECG, this is an R, this is a QRS, this is a Q wave, this is an S wave, and so on. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start at the baseline between the P and the QRS. Right? So when you're looking at an ECG, start at the baseline. The first negative wave, so you're going there, and then the first negative is always going to be a Q. Right? So if you see going, flat, negative, it's going to be a Q. The first positive after a negative, the first positive on the ECG is going to be called an R, whether it's preceded by a negative or not. So if you're going on your way on the ECG and you find a positive, that's an R. If you're going and find a negative and then a positive, that's a QR. Okay? So first negative is a Q, first positive is an R, whether it's preceded by a negative or not. And then the first negative after a positive, so the first dip after a positive, is going to be an S wave. Okay? Is that clear? We're all happy with that? Good. Now let's do some exercises. These are here, some sheet files here for you. Right, so let's name this complex. So what is this complex called? Very good, QRS. And sometimes you use capital and small letters to see, just to identify the relative, weights of the different signals. So if you have a small Q, a big R, you can write it this way in a capital letter. Okay? What's this wave called? Very good. And again, capital RS. What's this one called? Very good. Excellent. And again, you're using a bigger R here to compare to this R. Right? So if you're dealing with a bundled branch, you can write it this way. Okay? What's this one called? Excellent. Good. What's this one called? Yeah? RS? Yeah? So remember, someone mentioned RQ. So remember, the first negative after a positive is an S wave. Right? The first negative full stop, the first negative is a Q. First negative after a positive is an RS. Right? What's this one called? Q. Very good. What's this one called? Yeah? So sometimes if you find like a massive dip, a massive hole in the ground, you can label it QS. Right? So they both combine together. But Q is fine as well. What's this one called? Very good. And this one? Yeah? Good. All right. So we're happy, we know what we're talking about. Okay. Right, let's do an exercise. So let's name these complexes. So P, QRS, T. P, QRS, T. Okay? We're all happy? Good. Now let's talk about sinus rhythm because, common things are common and you should be seeing sinus rhythm in like 60% of the time, right? And the key to identifying sinus rhythm, just like we've been talking about the pigeons, is identifying a pattern. Okay? And this pattern basically is this. PQRS, 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 PQRS. One P preceded by a QRS, one QRS preceded by a P. Alright, so for every P there's a QRS, for every QRS there's a P before it. Okay? And this is the pattern that you need to know. If you manage to identify this pattern, you've got 60% of the ECGs. When asked about what's the rhythm here, it's going to be sinus rhythm, 50-60% of the time. Right, so let's go do some exercises. What's this rhythm? Yeah, so I can see a P. So I can see a P, QRS, PQRS, PQRS, PQRS. Yeah, and so on. Okay? So if you can see this pattern, PQRS, PQRS, so for every P there's a QRS, for every QRS there's one P. Alright? So this is sinus rhythm. Very good. What's this rhythm? So it's helpful if you're not sure. Sometimes you'll be, encounter an ECG which is not like a textbook. Yeah? But what you can do is you've got 12 leads to look at. So when you ask about the rhythm, I'm looking specifically for PQRS. If I can't see it here, I'm going to look here. If I can't see it here, this is rubbish. I'm going to look here. So keep looking until you find the pattern that you're looking for, which is PQRS, PQRS, PQRS. So are we all happy? This is a PQRS, PQRS, PQRS. Yeah. So what's the rhythm? Very good. What's the rhythm here? There's no catches. Yeah? So, are we all happy this is a PQRS, PQRS, PQRS? Yeah? Right. So, the rhythm is sinus rhythm. That's right. Okay, and what's the rhythm here? Excellent. Yeah, that's a sinus rhythm. Very good. All right. So when you ask about a rhythm, don't panic if you start seeing disasters happening on the ECG. You're just looking for the rhythm. It's a simple question. Just keep it simple, right? I'm looking for a pattern here. It's PQRS, PQRS, PQRS. What's the rhythm here? So look for the pattern. So what pattern are we looking for? PQRS. Now let's look. This is a QRS. This looks like a complex. QRS, QRS, QRS. So I'm going to go back and look for any P's. Maybe something is here. Can't see it here. Can't see it here. Can't see it here. But what else is evident here? So before every QRS, there's something. Yeah, there's these spikes here. Yeah, there's these spikes, and nature never presents these like straight lines. It never presents anything in a like discrete form there, like this. Yeah, usually it's like a curve or a wave or something, but not a spike. So whenever you see these spikes on the ECG, this is basically spike QRS, spike QRS, spike QRS, spike QRS. Yeah, so we change the pattern. And if you see a spike, this means that this patient has got a paced rhythm. And that's important because sometimes in A&E, you get someone who's collapsed or coming in an RTA, and you do an ECG and you see these spikes. Patient is not able to give you a history to tell you he's got a pacemaker or a defib or certain types of pacemakers. All right? But looking at the ECG, you can know what's happening. Okay? And this is how his X-ray is going to look like. So this guy who's collapsed, not responding because he had an RTA, you do an X-ray and you find this. Yeah? Can you all see the pacemaker on the X-ray? Now, any idea how many leads are coming out of this pacemaker? So what's the best way when you look at an X-ray to find out how many leads are coming off a pacemaker?
Is it to look at the connection with the pacemaker itself?
Very good. So sometimes you'll be able to see a crisp, clear, you can see lead here in the atria, a lead here in the ventricle as well, okay? But sometimes the patient's going to have pneumonia or pulmonary edema, or obese patients, you won't be able to see the leads very clearly. So the best way to look for is to see here the battery, right? This is where the leads plug in. So you've got one lead plugged in, second lead plugging in. Yeah? So if you're able to count how many leads are plugging in the battery, you'll be able very quickly to say this is a single lead, dual lead, triple lead pacemaker. Okay? Yeah? Good. What's this rhythm? Yeah? So we got PQRS, 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 PQRS. We all happy? Yeah, but it's not regular, isn't it? Yeah. Usually the sinus rhythm, as we said, is like a clock beat, 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 beat. Yeah, it's like someone keeping the beat, all right, or someone keeping the rhythm. But this here is irregular. It's still sinus because it's PQRS. Okay? But it's a sinus rhythm, but it's what we call a sinus arrhythmia, and sometimes it happens when you breathe in and so on. Okay? For those of you who just come in, there's coffee and some breakfast. Please feel free, and anyone, please just feel free to have a coffee. Please feel free to stop me at any time and ask questions as well. Okay? Good. Now let's talk about the rate. So are we all happy that we know roughly when to pick up a sinus rhythm? We know roughly when to pick up a paced rhythm as well on the ECG. We all happy with that? We know roughly how to pick up an X-ray and see a pacemaker X-ray and see how many leads are coming out of this pacemaker. Yeah. So let's talk about the rate now. All right. So, when we look at an ECG paper, we've got some guidance, like a map. Like when you're reading a map, there's a key to the map to tell you where we are at the map. And this very small square is 0.04 second. A big square is 0.2 seconds, which makes 5 big squares 1 second. Okay? We're all happy with that math? So basically, 1 big square is 0.2 seconds. 5 big squares is 1 second. Okay? So this gives you then this formula. So that 1 big square is 0.2 seconds, 5 big squares are 1 second. 30 big squares multiplied by 6 are 6 seconds, right? And 300 big squares will give you 1 minute. So if you ever want to calculate an ECG and you've got time to do an ECG for 1 minute, you'll be able to get the rate in 1 minute, all right? But you have to have just like wait 1 minute and then wait for the ECG at the standard speed to give you the rate, basically, right? But obviously no one does this. So the rate, the formula to calculate the rate is to divide 300 divided by the number of big squares between each RR, and this will give you the rate. Okay? So if you know that this complex is here, I've got 1 large block between each QRS, 2 large, 3 large, 4, 5, 6 blocks between each QRS complex, it becomes easy to calculate the rate. Okay? Yeah? So what's the rate here?
300.
Very good. So 300 divided by 1 is going to be 300. Here? Very good. Excellent. 75, 60, 50. Right? We're all happy there? All right? Good. But there's a rule. There's a catch to that rule. The rhythm has to be regular. It has to be a regular beat if you want to use the 300 rule. Okay? So the question then is, how do you know it's regular? When you look at an ECG, how do you know it's regular? So you could do a simple thing and just eyeball it. So yeah, it looks regular. Okay? But sometimes it's not going to be that clear. If it's too quick or too slow, it's not going to be that clear. All right? So then you can use the paper marking method. Are you all happy how to do this? Yeah? Good. So either by seeing eyeball, usually it will be, 80% of the time it's going to be clear. Yeah, that's completely irregular, just like the sinus arrhythmia that we saw here. Or yeah, that's definitely regular. And then you can use the 300 method or not. Right? But if you're in doubt, if it's too slow, like very, very slow AF will look regular. Very, very fast AF or SVT is going to look regular. So you might need to use the paper and pen method, and if you're not sure, I can show you afterwards. Using the paper and pen method will give you an immediate answer whether this is regular or not. Okay? Right, so what I want you to do now when you see an ECG is to ask, the first question is ask, is it regular or not? Okay, so that's the first thing when, this is my way at least of looking at ECGs, is that if you look at an ECG, ask, is it regular or not? So is this regular or not? Yeah? It's regular. So what's the rate if we know that there are 4 big squares? So 300 divided by 4 is going to be about 75. Yeah, just a ballpark figure is going to be fine. If you say 70, it's fine as well. And then the question is, what's the rhythm? Excellent. Why do you say sinus? Very good. Excellent. Good. So we're picking speed up here. Right. Let's look at this ECG. Is it regular? Yeah, agree. What's the rate if there are 4 big squares between the QRSs? Excellent. And what's the rhythm? Yeah, it's good. Very good. Sinus, because you can see there's a QRS. So the first thing you would do is pick up an ECG, a lead where you can see things clearly. So this looks like a decent, well-behaved lead here. You've got a QRS, QRS, QRS. Now let's go back. There's a P, P, P. Whether this is like, first degree heart block, very prolonged PR interval, doesn't matter. But as long what you're looking for here is a pattern. All right? So just remember these pigeons. You're looking for a pattern. If I see this, then that. Okay? Good. What about this rhythm here? Is it regular? Yeah? Yeah, agree. What's the rate if there are 3 big squares? Excellent, good, 100. And what's the rhythm? So pick up a decent, well-behaved lead. So let's look at this lead, for example, V1. So there's a QRS, QRS, QRS. Now I'm going to go back and see a P wave. We said, remember that the rule for sinus is that 1 P wave followed by a QRS, 1 QRS preceded by 1 P wave, right? So you have to have both conditions. So that's a P wave That's a P wave followed by QRS. But what's happening here? You've got a QRS followed by two P waves. Yeah? So you got two P waves and then a QRS. Boom, boom, tack, boom, boom, tack, boom, boom, tack. Yeah? That's not the usual boom, tack, boom, tack, boom, tack of a sinus rhythm. Yeah? So what could this be? So the atria, we said the P wave is atrial contraction, yeah? So the atria is doing this, and then the ventricle is responding. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. What's this? Excellent, good. That's an atrial flutter, right? If you're not sure that's atrial flutter, something is wrong in the atria. It's atrial tachycardia of some sort, right? So the idea, as I mentioned, is you're not going to be able to pick up everything on the ECG, but you'll be able to say something is not right here, right? So when you look at an ECG, you pick up a decent, well-behaved lead, see what you're thinking is happening. So here you could be fooled if you look at this one here. Yeah, say PQRS, PQRS, PQRS. This is sinus, but then just quickly glance throughout the rest of the ECGs and see what's happening. Oh, hang on, what's happening here? Okay. Yeah? Very good. Is this regular? Yeah? It is. What's the rate? It's about 1.5, so it's not 1 square, it's not 2 squares, it's somewhere in between. So if it's 1 square, it's 300. If it's 2 squares, it's 150. So it's somewhere between 250, between 150 and 300. So let's say it's going to be around 200, 250 beats a minute. Yeah? And what's the rhythm? Not sinus. Very good. Excellent. That's what I wanted to do. It's not sinus. Because at a very basic level, you should be able to say, hang on, something is not right here. I'm not going to discharge this patient, hopefully. Yeah? But this is a spot diagnosis. This is one of those things that you just have to know. Just like the pigeons. You have to see this and then start screaming, right? When you see this, you say, well, hang on. I need to get some help here. Okay? What's this? Excellent. Good. All right? So it can only be a VT. At this level, there's other possibilities, but at this level, just it's a VT until proven otherwise. Okay? Happy? Good. Is this regular? Yeah, agree. What's the rate? It's about 5 squares, 300 divided by 5. Very good. And what's the rhythm? Excellent, good. So QRS, 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 spike, spike, spike. That's a paced rhythm. You all happy with that? Yeah? Excellent. Is this regular? No, it's not. Are we all happy it's not regular, yeah? We all in agreement? So, if it's irregular, 70-80% of the time it's going to be what? Yeah, very good. So if it's irregular, if it's like completely, bizarrely irregular, mostly it's going to be atrial fibrillation, right? So if someone is asking me to bet, you should say, yeah, AF, even if you're not sure. Okay? It could be obviously sinus arrhythmia, it could be complete heart block with variable block and things like that. But if you say AF, 70% of the time you're going to be fine. Okay? So what's the rate?
You can't use the 300.
Very good. Well, I'm not really sure. Yeah, because remember the 300 rule, to use it, it has to be regular. Okay, very good. Right, what about this ECG? Is it regular? No, it's not. What's the rhythm? 70% of the time it's going to be? Yeah, AF. And what's the rate? You can't really say because here it's like 150, here it's like 60, so is it 60, it's 150, it's a big, way big kind of discrepancy to be able to say for sure. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know what's the rate here. So, as we said, the rule that it has to be regular in order to be able to say with accuracy what's the rate. And how do you know it's regular? Eyeballing or the paper marking method. Okay? So we agree that it's irregular. These two ECGs that we just saw are irregular. We all happy with that? So how do we calculate then the rate in irregular rhythms like AF or complete heart block with variable block or atrial flutter with variable block? How are you going to calculate the rate then? So let's go back to this rule where it says that 1 big square equals 5 big squares equals 30 big squares equals and so on. And we're going to pick particularly this one here where it says 30 big squares are 6 seconds. So if I take 6 seconds multiplied by 10, it will give me a minute, and then I'll have the rate. All right? So what I need to know then is how many QRSs are there in 30 big squares, multiply that by 10, and I'll get the rate in a minute. Okay? Right? So that's easy then. Let's count the number of QRSs in 30 big squares. 6 seconds multiplied by 10, we get a minute. Yeah? So let's count 30 big squares. But good luck doing this at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're in A&E and there's people banging around and noises and crashes and drunk patients coming in and so on. And you can count. You can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you get the 30 big squares. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, so you got 14 beats in 6 seconds, multiplied by 10, it's 140 AF. Yeah? But rather than trying to count and then 1, 2, 3, and then someone asks you, Peter, where are you? And then you said, where am I? I'm going to start counting again. Yeah? I found this method very helpful. It works. It's a magic trick. Honestly, I don't know how it works, even though the different size pens and pencils. But if you just drop a pen, honestly, I don't know how it works, but it usually lands at 30 beats. It might be miss 1 or 2, but I don't know how it works. I think all the pens in the world are standard. But basically, if you just drop a pen, it will give you 30 big squares. Count the numbers of beats on the at the bottom of this pen, and you get the number. Right? What's the rate here? So we can count. It's not regular. It's atrial fibrillation. And what is the rate? Let's drop the pen. So if you drop a pen, it becomes easier. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish. 80. Wow. Amazing. So far we know the sinus rhythm, how the sinus rhythm works. All right. We know the pattern of sinus rhythm: P QRS, P QRS, P QRS, 1 P followed by QRS, 1 QRS preceded by just 1 P wave. All right. We know how to look for pacing spikes. If we see these sharp spikes on the ECG, they are either artifacts or there's a pacemaker. And we know how to look at an X-ray for a pacemaker and see how many leads there are in the pacemaker. And we know how to calculate the rate in regular and irregular rhythms. Okay? We're all happy? Good. Now let's talk about ectopics, because I think this is where it fits. All right? So you're now more confident looking at an ECG. Usually it's going to be sinus rhythm. You're going to look at an ECG, and then you're going to be encountering some ectopics. These bugs, these flies that just come in the ECG, and then they start messing everything that's out of sync with what the harmony of the pattern and the harmony of the PQRS, or the AF, or the atrial flutter. And when we talk about ectopics, basically there are 2 areas where the ectopics can come from. What are these 2 areas? So where can ectopics come from in the heart? Atrial? Very good. So they can either come from the atrium, so somewhere other than the sinus node is going to start pitching in as well and saying, yeah, I've got a voice as well, I need to be heard. All right? Or, and this is how it looks on the ECG. All right? So you're running along PQRS, and then boom. Yeah? PQRS, standard PQRS, going to work in the morning, just usual day, and then encounters a problem here. And as someone else, the neighbor just starts getting out as well and saying, I as well need to be heard here. All right? So you get this extra beat. And interestingly, what you'll see is that the QRS complex from the atrial ectopic, which is coming earlier than what it should be, looks exactly similar. Because eventually, remember the trunk wall that was here? There's nowhere else for this signal to get transmitted to the ventricle apart from finding its way down the AV node, down the Hesperkenji, down the bundle branches to activate the ventricle. So the QRS is going to look exactly the same. Okay? The P wave will look slightly different because the HA is now activated from a different vector, from a different area. All right? Rather than having, the headquarters in London, the headquarters are suddenly in Birmingham, so that the electricity the waveform is going to be different. Okay? So the P wave is going to be different. The QRS is going to look exactly the same. We all happy with that? The other area where the ectopics can come from are the ventricular ectopics. Yeah? So I said the ectopics can come either from the atria, from the top, or from the ventricles. Ventricular ectopics are completely different. Because basically what happens with ventricular ectopics is that they occur in the ventricle already, so the QRS is going to be completely messed up. They bypass the whole system. They just kind of bypass the whole Trump hole theory. Okay? So what you're going to have is a QRS, PQRS, PQRS, just like holding hands, walking together, and all of a sudden a cow just drops in between them. Yeah? So if you ever find a cow in the middle of like a flock of sheep, then something is not right, all right? This is usually a ventricular ectopic, okay? Until proven otherwise. Good. Now let's do some exercises. Again, is this regular? Agree? No, it's not. By eyeballing. What's the rate here? Say again? Someone said something?
60 to 70?
Yeah. Someone said something here. We need a pen. I agree. There's a pen. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. About 60, 70 beats a minute. So what's the rhythm here? So when you ever ask about a rhythm, you want to first in your mind say, well, I just need to rule out sinus because majority of times it's going to be sinus. So I'm going to look for sinus, which means I'm going to look for the pattern. So can you see the pattern here? Yeah? Yeah, agreed. There's a PQRS, PQRS, just one P followed by QRS, P followed by QRS, P followed by QRS. But then why is the sinus, so this is a sinus rhythm, but then why is the sinus not regular? Usually sinus should be regular. So what's happening here? Yeah? So why is it not regular? So this is a standard looking, this is like trying to get 50, 60 beats a minute. And then you get this that's coming early trying to pitch in, trying to enforce itself. Yeah? And then you get a normal one, and then you try to get someone that's trying to just push itself as well. Just like, riding the bus at the last minute. Okay? So what are these 2 beats called? 2 or 3 beats called? Ectopics, yeah? These are ectopics. They shouldn't be here. And are they atrial or ventricular? Why are they atrial? Because the QRS look exactly the same, right? If you ignore the rate, you'll have very similar QRSs, all right? You wouldn't know. Very good. So these are atrial ectopics. Right? Is it regular? Yeah. So when you're looking at an ECG, just look at the bigger picture. So on all, I think it's a regular rhythm. Yeah? It's like if you look here, regular, 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 something happens here, and then these are V6, regular, 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 something happens here, and so on. Yeah? What's the rate here? Ignoring the irregularities or the... So, yeah, I think it's about 4 or 5 squares. So it's about 70 beats a minute. It's regular rhythm. 300 divided by 4 is 70, 75. What's the rhythm here? Yeah, sinus. Yeah, just common things are common. Yeah. Don't leave the whole ECG and say, well, I'm not sure what this rhythm is here going on in this particular 0.02 seconds of time. The majority in its entirety, it's a sinus rhythm. Yeah. Are there any ectopic beats? Yeah. Agree? These are ectopic beats. You're having a sheep, 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 cow. Right? Sheep, 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 cow. Something completely different. Like, where did this come from? This doesn't belong to this ECG. Yeah? So it's an ectopic beat. And it's a ventricular beat. Are we all happy it's a ventricular beat? It's a ventricular ectopic because it's completely different. It's a cow. Okay? So, now if you start seeing a lot of ventricular ectopics, so when we're talking about ventricular ectopics here, if you start seeing a lot of cows that are trying to take over, more than this. So here, you just got 2 ectopics amongst 20 or 30 heartbeats, yeah? We can live with that. But if you start seeing a lot of ventricular ectopics that are trying to take over, right, then try and look for a pattern for these ectopics. Okay? So let's look at this ECG. What's happening here? There are cows here. Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Yeah? Cow, 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 cow. Right? So ignore the cows. What's the rhythm? Ignore the cows. So what's this rhythm? What's this rhythm? What's this rhythm? Sinus. Okay, PQRS, PQRS. So if the cows did not exist, you would just be calling it a sinus rhythm. All right? But are the cows coming in a particular pattern? What's happened?
After each number.
Every other beat. Yeah? So boom tack, boom tack, boom tack, boom tack, boom tack. Okay? So what is this called? So it's bigeminy, right? Just as the name says. So every other beat, an ectopic occurs. A ventricular ectopic occurs. After each sheep, a cow comes. Sheep, cow, sheep, cow, sheep, cow. Sinus, ventricular, sinus, ventricular, sinus, ventricular. All right? Now, normally when you see this, something is not right. You know, so the heart is struggling here. I can't put my finger on, but something is not right. Is it electrolyte? Is it ischemia? Is it cardiomyopathy? Is it heart failure? But something is not right, right? This might be okay. You know, we can allow this, but this not too much, right? We just need to get an opinion here. Are we happy sending this patient home? What about this here? So are there cows? Ignore the cows. Are there, what's the rhythm? Yeah, so I'm going to choose one where I can see clear PQRS, PQRS. Yeah, so it's sinus. Now there are a lot of cows, yeah, in this ECG. What's the pattern? Yeah, so every third beat. So 1, 2, boom, 1, 2, boom, 1, 2, boom. So every third beat there's a cow. Yeah? So this is a ventricular trigeminy. So every 3 beats there's a cow. Okay? Very good. Now we're approaching the end. So I'd like to just squeeze here the bundle branch block. Okay? So when we talk about bundle branch block, are we all happy that we are talking about a wide QRS complex? So when you look at an ECG, the QRS loses its graceful shape, you know, this like up, very, very sharp upstroke, downstroke QRS, right? And you start having a wide QRS. So how wide are we talking in order to be able to label it a bundle?
3 small ones.
Very good, 3 small squares. So if you start having a complex, QRS complex, more than 3 small squares, more than 120 milliseconds, remember each small square is 0.4, then more than 120 milliseconds, then we're talking about a bundle branch block on an ECG. Okay? And there are rules to understand the bundle branch block. So why do they look that different? You know, why does a bundle branch block look crazy like it does? Yeah? And the rules to understand it is to go step back and see the ECG leads. When we put ECG leads, these are just radar cameras. All right? These are just cameras. And they're done with one sole purpose. Is that they're going to look at the sum of the electricity and see is the electricity coming towards the camera or is the electricity going away from the camera. Right? Doesn't know who's doing the electricity, doesn't know who's creating the signal, but it can just see 10 electrons going away, 9 electrons coming towards me, which means there's 1 going away, right? So it's going to be negative. So if the sum of the electricity is towards the lead, the ECG leads, when we put in the chest or put in the arm and legs, right, it's going to record a positive. If the sum of the electricity, if the vector is negative, is going away, right, it's going to record the negative. That's all it does. All right? Yeah? Happy with that? So ECG leads are radar cameras, and all they do is that they just calculate the sum of electricity going towards and going away from the lead. If the sum is higher, going away, it's a negative. If it's more towards, it's a positive, all right? So they're going to record an R, or we're going to record an S. Okay? Good. Now let's look at the ventricular activation pattern, because that's very important to understand the bundle branch block. Right? I'm going to start with a normal QRS complex. And we're going to look at it from two leads. The ventricular V1, which is towards the right ventricle here. Remember, the heart is in the chest like this. So the ventricle, the apex, is more towards the left, and the right ventricle is more towards the right. Okay, so V1 is on the chest wall here. V6 is more towards the apex, towards the left ventricle. And the key to understanding why the QRS complexes in the chest leads look the way they are is to understand the pattern. And the first thing that gets activated in the ventricle is the septum. Okay? And it gets activated from the left to right. So the septum is the first area of the heart to be activated from the left to right. So if you are a camera standing here in V1 towards the right, is the electricity going to be coming towards you or away from you? Very good, yeah. So you record an arc. Yeah, you record the positive. If you are a camera sitting on the other end of the left ventricle, electricity is going from the left to right, then the electricity is going to be going away, yeah? So you're going to record the negative. It's not very clear, but it's this small q. All right, this is normal. This is what happens in a normal QRS activation. And then you get both ventricles activated through the His-Purkinje together. Okay? So both are going to be activated together. But then you've got this strong muscular left ventricle and this like delicate right ventricle here. Both are activated at the same time, but where's the sum of electricity going to play? Who's going to have the upper hand here in terms of electricity? Left ventricle, yeah? So if you're a camera looking here at the V1 from the right ventricle point of view, the electricity is going away from you. Yeah? So the sum of electricity is heading heavily weighing towards the left ventricle. And from a V1 point of view, the electricity is going away from you. Right? So you get a negative. All right? But on the other hand, if you're in V6, you feel power. All right? And you see the positive, because the electricity is weighing in your favor now, coming towards you. And then obviously you get the recovery pattern afterwards. Okay? So this is very important if you want to understand why the bundle branches look the way they do. So the first thing is that the septum activates left to right, and then the electricity shifts towards the left ventricle, and this is why ECG looks in V1 this way and in V6 this way. Are we all happy? Good. Now let's look what happens in a left bundle branch block. Okay? So in the left bundle branch block, just remind me again, how did the septum activate previously? In the normal circumstances, how does the septum activate? Left to right, yeah? But the left bundle is now gone. So you're going to have now a reverse pattern. All right? So the septum is now going to activate right to left. So if you're a camera in V1, instead of seeing the positive, you're going to see negative. If you're a camera in V6, you'll be happy because, where does this come from? Or you bring it on, so you're just going to see positive electricity coming towards you, you're going to record that positive. Happy? But then, rather than having the His-Purkinje activating both ventricles together, the left bundle is gone. Yeah? So your right ventricle is going to get activated. So you're going to be happy. And then you start getting muscle-to-muscle activation to the left ventricle. Okay? So what you'll have is a dual pattern whereby you get this small initial R wave in V1. Okay? And then you get the right ventricle activating, so it gives you this R, and then the whole electricity shifts away from you, so you get this deep S wave. Okay? But if you're on the other hand in V6 in a bundle branch block, you initially get this kick of the septal activation, so you get this initial R wave, and then you get the electricity going away from you here, so it gets down because your right ventricle is being activated, and the right ventricle being just a delicate being, it just gives you a small S, and then you get the electricity coming towards you, which gives you this additional RSR pattern. Yeah? Happy with that? So this is why a bundle branch block, left bundle looks like an M shape in V6. So what happens in the right bundle then? So what's the normal pattern of activation for the septum? left to right, yeah? So in a bundled right bundle, the initial part is going to be exactly similar to normal, right? Because the septum is activated exactly the normal way, okay? But then you get the left ventricle being activated by the left bundle, because remember the right bundle is gone, yeah? So you get this positive V wave, and you get a negative here in V1. So from a camera standing in the right side, the electricity is shifting away from you. It's going to record the negative. Okay? And then you start getting muscle-to-muscle activation to the right side. And this is where you get this additional R wave in V1. Okay? So this is how you then see an RSR pattern in V1. All right? And you see this deep S wave towards the end. Usually it's deep and laggy in V6. Okay? Are we all happy with that? Happy with why the bundles look the way they do? Very good. All right, let's go back to our exercises. Is this regular? Yeah, agree. What's the rate then? We know that there's like 3 big squares. So 300 divided by 3. Very good. What's the rhythm here? Excellent. Oh, you guys are becoming an expert. That's good. Now, what I want you to start asking now is when you say sinus, just ask yourself very quickly for like 0.0002 seconds. Is the QRS normal or not? All right, so I want you to start adding this in now in your algorithm. So is the QRS complex? Is this what you normally use to, like this sharp, beautiful looking QRSs? No, yeah. So if the answer is no, then follow this by, is this a bundle? Yeah? So what bundle are we looking at here? Yeah, the right bundle. I agree. So you get this V1. So basically look at V1 and V6. This will give you basically the answer. What bundle is this? So if you see an RSR pattern in V1, you know it's the right bundle and you know why. And you get this deep S waves here in V6. Happy with that? Very good. Right, what about this one? Is this regular? Agreed. What's the rate? There are 4 squares. Yeah, 80-ish. And what's the rhythm here? Very good. Sinus. Is the QRS normal? No? So there must be a bundle. What bundle is there? Right bundle, yeah. So can you see this might not project very well, but there's an RSR, there's this deep S waves in V6 as well. Yeah? So that's a right bundle. Excellent. Is this regular? Yeah? What's the rate? 50 beats a minute. What's the rhythm? Sinus, agreed. Are the QRS normal? No? And I can see this RSR pattern, alright? So that's the right bundle. Okay, what's happening here? Is this regular? No, it's not regular. What's the rate? You need a pen. There's a pen. So it's 90 beats a minute. And what's the rhythm? If it's irregular, probably going to be, ignore these because they're not before each, so they're just separating the lead 3 from ABF. Happy to say? Are the QRS normal? What's the bundle? Yeah. Left bundle, yeah. So if you're asking for a bundle, just see where the pattern R, S, R, R, S, R, R, S, R, yeah? Happy with that? Is this regular? No? What's the rate? Okay, there's a pen. It's always work, I told you, it's amazing. It's about 80 beats a minute. What's the rhythm? So irregular, 70% of the time is going to be looking like AF, yeah? Are the QRS normal? No? Can you look towards V5, V6, any particular pattern you recognize? Yeah, left bundle, very good. So far we've seen the sinus rhythm. We know what the pacing spike looks like. We can calculate rhythm in regular and irregular rhythms. We know what atrial and ventricular ectopics look like, and we understand why a bundle branch looks the way a bundle branch looks. Okay? Let's do a quick quiz. Got like 7 minutes, is that okay with everyone? What's the rhythm here? So we'll just look for one where we can see PQRS, 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 PQRS. We're happy that this is a sinus? Very good. And the rate of 80 beats a minute. Now let's name the QRS complexes. What's happening here? So first positive is? Very good, that's an R. This one here? Very good. This one here? Excellent. This one here? Very good, okay, yeah. QR. This one here? Very good. Not sure where the other one comes in. Yeah, RS. Happy with that? Good. There might be some, few more. And what's the rhythm here? So it's a bizarre rhythm, this, because there's QRSs, but I can't see a P wave. There's no P waves, yet they are regular. So it's regular, but there's no P waves. So where's the atria? The atria is gone. It's out of the equation, but it's regular. It's not atrial fibrillation. So this could only be coming from somewhere here, from the AV node itself. Okay? So the AV node is controlling a regular rhythm, boom, 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 but you don't have the atria. Right? So this signal is originating from the ventricle itself, activating the atria and the ventricle at the same time, because the ventricle is such a huge bull, okay? The atrial signal is hidden inside it, so you can't see it on the ECGs. Yeah? Are these atrial ventricular ectopics? Very good. What's this rhythm? So the first thing, this is a trick question, because the really first thing to ask is this regular or not? All right. So is this regular? It's not. Yeah. So it can be 70-80% of the time it's going to be. Yeah. Very good. And what's the rate? Yeah. Let's drop the pen. It works. I told you. All right. So it's going to be about 140 beats a minute. Is this ventricular or atrial ectopics? Very good. How many leads are coming out of this pacemaker? Oh, sorry. If I tell you there's one lead coming, how many leads are coming? Just one, yeah? So this is a single lead, so it's not projecting very well. So this is a single chamber pacemaker, and we'll talk about this when we talk about bradycarditis. Can you see this better? If I tell you there are two leads being plugged in? Yeah, so it's difficult to see, but basically there's two leads plugging in here. This and this, yeah? So this is a dual chamber pacemaker, two leads. Can you see this? Yeah? How many leads are coming out? Very good. All right, that's all I want from you at this stage, is just to say this is a 3-lead pacemaker. What's the rhythm here? So is there a pattern? What pattern are we looking for? So first question is this regular or not? Yeah, looking regular. So if it's regular, 60% of the time it's going to be sinus. Let me just confirm. I can see a PQRS, 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 PQRS. Yeah? So this is a sinus rhythm. Sorry. And what does the QRS show? It's abnormal looking QRS, isn't it? So it's a what? Bundle. Let me look at V5 and V6. Can I see a specific pattern that I recognize? Yeah, RSR, so that's a left bundle. What's the rhythm here? So is it regular or not? So that's the question I'm asking really. Is it regular? Yes, tick. Let's go down the algorithm. Is it sinus or not? Is it sinus? So basically, is there a PQRS, PQRS, PQRS? I can see a PQRS, maybe it's not projecting very well. PQRS, PQRS, PQRS. Yeah, so that's a sinus rhythm. And what does the QRS show? Yeah, left bundle. Agree. So you got this RSR pattern in V5, V6 towards the left ventricle. Sometimes you see it also in 1 and AVL, because these look at the left side. Okay? What's the rhythm here? It's a regular rhythm. Sinus. Are the QRS fine? Happy with the QRSs? Agree. Yeah, I'm not happy with the QRSs because they look bizarre here. What's going on in V1, V2? And this RSR pattern. Yeah? So what's this? Right bundle. Yeah, very good. So there's some practical tips if you want to read ECGs. So first of all, if someone presents you with an ECG like this, just don't try it. Right? Because you make life difficult. Plus you buy yourself some time and tell them, just go and make me another ECG. So you get yourself some time to get off the shift or something. So, it works. And practice, all right? So remember those pigeons, within a week they were able to increase their accuracy of detecting cancer cells from 50% to 80, 90%, just within a week. Pigeons, no medical degrees, can't read or write, I assure you, right? So within a week they were able to, so practice. So whenever you're on the ward, if you ever come across an ECG, try and read it. And I just want to briefly mention to you Smart Heart, and this is basically a campaign that I started with local schools here in Warrington over the last 3 years. And basically I go to around primary schools educating the kids about the heart, how it works, how to look after it, and the dangers of smoking particularly. And so far, today we're going to be reaching, crossing the 4,000 kids mark, right? And the feedback from the parents, the teachers, is overwhelmingly positive. So some parents even quit smoking because their kids went back and started nagging with them, right? So if you want to get involved, that would be amazing if you could come and help. I'll be doing all the talking, we'll be helping with, just getting the kids to feel the pulse and listen to the heart with the stethoscopes and so on. And Alex Mooney has kindly been helping me giving out certificate of participation that you can use in your portfolio as well. The kids just sent back amazing posters and pictures of what they learned, and we had a gallery display in Warrington last year. We've got a Facebook page as well where we display this, and it's displayed in the hospital corridors as well, and it gets amazing feedback from the public as well. So if you want to get involved, just please get in touch and feel free to stop me at any time. If you have any questions, if you have any ECGs you'd like to ask about or you're not sure about, just take a picture on the phone without the patient details, and please just get in touch. Okay? Thanks very much everyone for coming.